Marcus wiped down the marble countertop for the third time that evening, his eyes scanning the elegant dining room of the Golden Palm restaurant. At 28, he had been working as a server here for almost 4 years, and he knew every detail of the upscale establishment by heart. The soft jazz music played in the background as wealthy customers enjoyed their expensive meals, completely unaware of the young man who had grown up in the roughest neighborhood of Detroit. The evening had been unusually quiet until a well-dressed older gentleman walked through the front doors. Marcus noticed him immediately, not because of his expensive suit or the confident way he carried himself, but because of how he looked around the restaurant with genuine curiosity, rather than the entitled air most wealthy customers displayed. The man appeared to be in his early 60s with silver hair and kind eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. Marcus approached the gentleman's table with his usual professional smile. The man was sitting alone, which was somewhat unusual for their typical clientele who often came in large groups or with business associates. As Marcus handed him the menu, he noticed the man's hands. They were weathered and calloused, not what you would expect from someone wearing a $5,000 watch. "Good evening, sir. My name is Marcus, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with something to drink?" Marcus asked, maintaining his polite demeanor despite the exhaustion he felt from working double shifts to help pay for his younger sister's college tuition. The gentleman looked up with a warm smile that reached his eyes. "Please call me Robert. I'd love a glass of your house red wine, and perhaps you could recommend something from the menu. I'm not familiar with this place, but I've heard wonderful things about the food here." Marcus was surprised by the man's humble approach. Most customers at the Golden Palm expected him to know their preferences without asking, and rarely bothered with pleasantries. Robert seemed genuinely interested in having a conversation, which was refreshing after dealing with demanding customers all evening. As Marcus explained the restaurant's signature dishes, he found himself relaxing slightly. Robert listened attentively, asked thoughtful questions about the ingredients, and even inquired about Marcus's own preferences. There was something different about this customer. He treated Marcus like a person rather than just a server, which was unfortunately rare in this establishment. Robert ordered the grilled salmon with herb butter and a side of roasted vegetables. As Marcus took the order, he noticed Robert glancing around the restaurant again, this time with what seemed like concern. The older man appeared to be studying the other customers and staff, as if he was looking for something specific. "Is everything all right, sir?" Marcus asked, noticing the slight change in Robert's demeanor. Robert smiled reassuringly. "Everything's fine, Marcus. I'm just observing. You know, you can learn a lot about a place by watching how people interact with each other." Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure what Robert meant. He headed to the kitchen to place the order, thinking about the unusual customer. There was something about Robert that seemed familiar, though Marcus couldn't place where he might have seen him before. Perhaps it was just his kind demeanor that reminded Marcus of his late grandfather, who had always treated everyone with respect regardless of their station in life. When Marcus returned with Robert's wine, the older gentleman was looking out the large windows that faced the street. The restaurant was located in an upscale part of town, but Marcus knew that just a few blocks away, the neighborhood changed dramatically. It was a stark reminder of the two different worlds that existed so close to each other. "Thank you, Marcus," Robert said as he accepted the wine glass. "Tell me, how long have you been working here?" Marcus was again surprised by the personal question. Most customers were too absorbed in their own conversations or phones to engage with the staff. "About 4 years now, sir. I started here right after high school." "And do you enjoy the work?" Robert asked, taking a sip of his wine. Marcus hesitated for a moment. It was an honest question, and something in Robert's tone suggested he genuinely wanted to know the answer. "It's honest work, and it helps me support my family. The hours can be long, but I'm grateful to have a job." Robert nodded thoughtfully. "Family is important. Are you supporting siblings?" "My younger sister. She's in college studying to become a nurse. My parents passed away a few years ago in a car accident, so it's just the two of us now." Marcus wasn't sure why he was sharing such personal information, but Robert's genuine interest made him feel comfortable opening up. "I'm sorry for your loss, Marcus. It sounds like you're doing an admirable job taking care of your sister. Nursing is a noble profession. The world needs more people who want to help others." Marcus felt a warmth in his chest at Robert's words. It had been a long time since someone had acknowledged his efforts or shown genuine interest in his life story. Most people his age were focused on their own careers and social lives, while Marcus spent his days working and his evenings studying business courses online, hoping to eventually improve his situation. As the evening progressed, Marcus found himself looking forward to each interaction with Robert's table. The older gentleman was polite to all the staff, never snapped his fingers to get attention, and always said please and thank you. He seemed to be observing everything around him with the eye of someone who understood what good service looked like. Little did Marcus know that this seemingly ordinary evening was about to take a turn that would change his life forever. Outside the restaurant, two police officers were making their way down the street, and their attention had just been caught by something that would soon bring them directly to the Golden Palm's front door. The front door of the Golden Palm swung open with more force than usual, causing several diners to look up from their conversations. Two police officers entered the restaurant, their eyes scanning the room with the systematic precision of law enforcement professionals. Officer Martinez, a stern-faced woman in her 30s, approached the hostess stand while her partner, Officer Johnson, positioned himself near the entrance. Marcus felt his stomach tighten as he watched the scene unfold. Growing up in his neighborhood, interactions with police rarely ended well, and he had learned to be cautious around law enforcement. He glanced over at Robert's table and noticed that the older gentleman had also spotted the officers, though his expression remained calm and composed. "Excuse me," Officer Martinez said to the hostess, her voice carrying across the now quiet dining room. "We received a report about suspicious activity in this area. Someone matching a particular description was seen entering this establishment about an hour ago." The hostess, a young woman named Sarah who Marcus knew was working her way through college, looked nervous as she fumbled with the reservation book. "Of course, officers. How can we help you?" Marcus continued serving his other tables, but he kept one eye on the situation developing near the front of the restaurant. He had a sinking feeling about where this might be heading, especially when he noticed Officer Martinez's gaze sweep across the dining room and pause when she spotted Robert sitting alone at his table. Officer Johnson approached Marcus as he was refilling water glasses at a nearby table. "Excuse me, sir. We're looking for information about one of your customers. The older gentleman sitting alone over there. How long has he been here?" Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "About an hour, maybe a little more. He's been having dinner." "Is there a problem, officer?" "We received a report that someone matching his description was involved in suspicious activity near the financial district earlier today. We need to speak with him." Marcus looked over at Robert, who was calmly finishing his salmon while appearing to read something on his phone. There was nothing suspicious about the man's behavior. He had been nothing but polite and respectful throughout the evening. Something about this situation didn't feel right to Marcus. "What kind of suspicious activity?" Marcus asked, though he immediately regretted the question when Officer Johnson's expression hardened. "That's not your concern, sir. Please step aside while we handle this matter." Marcus watched as both officers approached Robert's table. The entire restaurant had fallen silent, with other diners turning to stare at the unfolding drama. Robert looked up from his phone with the same calm expression he had maintained all evening, showing no signs of panic or concern. "Excuse me, sir," Officer Martinez said, her hand resting casually on her belt. "We need to ask you some questions. Can you please stand up and step away from the table?" Robert set down his phone and looked directly at the officer. "Of course, officer. May I ask what this is regarding?" "We received a report about suspicious activity involving someone matching your description. We need to verify your identity and ask you some questions about your whereabouts earlier today." Marcus felt his heart racing as he watched the scene unfold. Something deep in his gut told him this was wrong. Robert had been nothing but kind and respectful, and his behavior throughout the evening had been completely normal. The young server found himself thinking about his own experiences with police assumptions and racial profiling, and he wondered if Robert might be facing something similar. As Robert stood up from his chair, Marcus noticed that the older gentleman moved slowly and deliberately, keeping his hands visible at all times. It was clear that Robert understood how to handle police encounters, which made Marcus wonder what experiences had taught him such caution. "I understand you're doing your job, officers," Robert said calmly, "but I believe there may be some misunderstanding. I've been having dinner here for the past hour, and before that I was in meetings at my office downtown. Officer Johnson stepped closer. We'll need to see some identification, sir, and we'd prefer to continue this conversation outside. Marcus watched as several other customers in the restaurant began whispering among themselves. Some looked concerned while others seemed eager to watch the drama unfold. The young server felt a growing sense of injustice as he realized that Robert was being treated as guilty until proven innocent, simply based on someone's report of suspicious activity. Robert reached slowly for his wallet, maintaining eye contact with the officers. My identification is in my jacket pocket. May I retrieve it? As Robert began to reach for his wallet, Marcus noticed that his hands were trembling slightly, not from fear but what appeared to be a medical condition. The older gentleman seemed to be having difficulty with the simple task of retrieving his identification, which only served to make the officers more suspicious. Sir, we need you to move more quickly, Officer Martinez said, her tone becoming more authoritative. Place your hands on the table and let us retrieve the identification. It was at this moment that Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He had watched enough injustice in his life, and something about this situation reminded him of the countless times he had seen good people treated poorly, simply because of assumptions and prejudices. Robert had shown him nothing but kindness and respect, and Marcus couldn't stand by and watch him be humiliated in front of the entire restaurant. Taking a deep breath, Marcus stepped forward, knowing that what he was about to do could cost him his job, but feeling compelled to act on what he believed was right. Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding but his voice steady. Excuse me, officers. I've been serving this gentleman all evening and I can vouch for his behavior. He's been nothing but respectful and has been sitting at this table for over an hour. Officer Martinez turned to face Marcus, her expression showing irritation at the interruption. Sir, I told you to step aside. This doesn't concern you. With respect, officer, it does concern me. This is my customer and I've been watching him the entire time he's been here. He ordered dinner, we talked about the menu, and he's been sitting quietly eating his meal. I don't understand what suspicious activity he could have been involved in. Marcus could feel the eyes of every person in the restaurant on him. His manager, Mr. Henderson, was walking quickly toward the scene, and Marcus knew he was about to face serious consequences for interfering with a police investigation. But something about Robert's calm dignity in the face of this treatment reminded Marcus of his own grandfather, and he couldn't bring himself to stay silent. Robert looked at Marcus with surprise and what appeared to be gratitude. Young man, I appreciate your concern, but please don't put yourself at risk on my account. No, sir, Marcus replied, still addressing the officers. I've lived in this city my whole life, and I know what it's like to be judged based on assumptions. This gentleman has done nothing wrong while he's been here. He's been polite, he tipped the busboy who brought him bread, and he asked about my family. That doesn't sound like someone who was involved in suspicious activity. Officer Johnson stepped toward Marcus, his posture becoming more aggressive. Son, you need to back down right now. Interfering with a police investigation is a serious offense. Mr. Henderson arrived at the scene, his face flushed with embarrassment and anger. Marcus, what are you doing? Officers, I apologize for my employee's behavior. Marcus, return to your duties immediately. But Marcus stood his ground. Mr. Henderson, I've been watching this entire situation and something isn't right. What exactly is the suspicious activity this gentleman is supposed to have been involved in? Officer Martinez's patience was clearly running thin. That information is part of an ongoing investigation. Now step back, or you'll be arrested for obstruction of justice. Then arrest me, Marcus said quietly, surprising everyone in the restaurant, including himself. But I'm not going to stand here and watch a good man be treated unfairly just because someone made a report. You haven't told him what he's supposed to have done, you haven't shown him any evidence, and you're treating him like a criminal for sitting in a restaurant eating dinner. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Other diners were now openly staring, some recording the scene with their phones. Robert remained standing beside his table, his hands visible, watching the young server who was risking his job and potentially his freedom to defend a stranger. Marcus, Robert said softly, you don't need to do this. I can handle this situation. Maybe you can, sir, but that doesn't make it right, Marcus replied. I've seen too many good people get treated badly because someone decided they looked suspicious. You've been nothing but kind to me tonight, and I'm not going to pretend I don't see what's happening here. Officer Martinez reached for her handcuffs. That's it. Sir, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice and interfering with a police investigation. As the officer moved toward Marcus, Robert finally spoke up with an authority in his voice that hadn't been there before. Officers, before you make any arrests, I think you should know who you're dealing with. Robert reached into his jacket pocket and retrieved not just his wallet, but a business card holder. He handed Officer Martinez a card along with his identification. My name is Robert Chen, and I'm the CEO of Chen Industries. I was in board meetings until 6 o'clock this evening, and I have dozens of witnesses who can verify my whereabouts. Officer Martinez looked at the business card and then at the identification, her expression changing dramatically. Chen Industries was one of the largest companies in the city, and Robert Chen was a well-known philanthropist whose picture regularly appeared in the business section of the local newspaper. I believe, Robert continued, that whatever report you received was either mistaken or malicious. As you can see from my identification, I am exactly who I claim to be. And this young man has been telling you the truth about my behavior this evening. Officer Johnson looked at his partner, clearly realizing they had made a significant mistake. The suspicious activity report had likely been about someone who simply resembled Robert, or perhaps had been called in by someone with ulterior motives. Marcus watched as the officer's demeanor changed completely. They went from treating Robert as a suspect to treating him with the deference typically shown to wealthy and influential citizens. The young server felt a mixture of relief and frustration, relief that Robert would not face further harassment, but frustration at how quickly the officers' attitudes changed once they realized they were dealing with someone powerful. Mr. Chen, we apologize for the inconvenience, Officer Martinez said, her tone now completely different. We were responding to a report, but clearly there was some misunderstanding. Robert nodded graciously. I understand you were doing your job, officers. However, I want to make something very clear. This young man, he gestured toward Marcus, showed tremendous courage and character tonight. He stood up for what he believed was right, even at personal risk. That's the kind of integrity that should be commended, not punished. The officers looked uncomfortable, realizing that their handling of the situation was about to be scrutinized by someone with significant influence in the community. Marcus remained standing where he was, still processing what had just happened and wondering what consequences he might face from his manager. The officers exchanged nervous glances as the weight of their mistake became clear. Officer Martinez cleared her throat and attempted to regain some professional composure. Mr. Chen, again, we apologize for the misunderstanding. We'll be sure to follow up on the source of the report to prevent this kind of confusion in the future. Robert nodded diplomatically. I would appreciate that, officer. False reports can have serious consequences for everyone involved. As the police officers prepared to leave, Mr. Henderson stepped forward, clearly flustered by the entire situation. Mr. Chen, please accept our sincere apologies for this disruption to your dining experience. We had no idea of your stature in the community. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he watched his manager's reaction. Mr. Henderson's apology was focused entirely on Robert's status as a wealthy businessman, not on the fact that the situation had been handled incorrectly from the start. The young server realized that his manager would likely be more concerned about potential negative publicity than about doing the right thing. Actually, Robert said, I'd like to speak with you about your employee here. He gestured toward Marcus. This young man demonstrated remarkable character tonight. Mr. Henderson's expression grew stern as he looked at Marcus. Sir, I assure you that Marcus will be disciplined for his inappropriate behavior. Interfering with law enforcement is completely unacceptable. On the contrary, Robert replied firmly, Marcus showed exactly the kind of integrity and moral courage that is rare in today's world. He stood up for what he believed was right, even when it could have cost him personally. That's not something to punish, that's something to celebrate. Marcus watched the exchange in amazement. He had expected to be fired on the spot, but Robert was actually defending his actions. The other diners in the restaurant were still watching the scene unfold, many of them now discussing among themselves what they had witnessed. Officer Johnson stepped forward, clearly eager to leave the increasingly uncomfortable situation. We'll be going now. Mr. Chen, thank you for your cooperation. As the officers left the restaurant, an uncomfortable silence fell over the dining room. Marcus could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on him, and he wasn't sure whether people viewed him as a hero or a troublemaker. All he knew was that he had followed his conscience, and he was prepared to face whatever consequences came from that decision. Robert turned to Marcus with a smile that seemed to contain both gratitude and something else, perhaps respect or admiration. "Marcus, would you mind bringing me the check? I think I've had enough excitement for one evening." "Of course, sir," Marcus replied, grateful for the opportunity to return to his normal duties and process what had just happened. As Marcus walked to the computer terminal to print Robert's check, he felt Mr. Henderson's hand on his shoulder. "We need to talk," his manager said quietly. "My office after you finish with Mr. Chen." Marcus nodded, knowing that the most difficult part of the evening was likely still ahead of him. He printed the check and returned to Robert's table, where the older gentleman was sitting quietly, seemingly lost in thought. "Here's your check, sir," Marcus said, placing the bill on the table. "And sir, I want you to know that I don't regret what I did. You didn't deserve to be treated that way." Robert looked up at Marcus with an expression that was difficult to read. "You know, Marcus, in my position I meet a lot of people. Business associates, politicians, other executives. Most of them are decent people, but they're also very conscious of their own interests. It's rare to meet someone who will stand up for a stranger simply because it's the right thing to do." Marcus felt embarrassed by the praise. "I just did what anyone should do in that situation." "No," Robert said, shaking his head. "Most people would have looked the other way. They would have told themselves it wasn't their business, or they would have been too afraid of the consequences. You chose to act on your principles even when it put you at risk." Robert reached into his wallet and placed several bills on the table, far more than the cost of his meal. "This is for you, Marcus, and I want you to know that what happened here tonight won't be forgotten." Marcus looked at the money on the table and realized Robert had left a tip of over $200. "Sir, this is too much. I was just doing what I thought was right." "Exactly," Robert replied, standing up from the table. "You were doing what was right without any expectation of reward. That's what makes it so valuable." As Robert prepared to leave, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. "Marcus, I'd like you to have this. If you ever find yourself in a difficult situation because of what happened tonight, please don't hesitate to call me." Marcus accepted the card and looked at it properly for the first time. Chen Industries was indeed one of the largest companies in the city, involved in everything from real estate development to technology investments. Robert Chen was not just wealthy, he was one of the most influential business leaders in the entire region. "Thank you, sir," Marcus said, though he couldn't quite believe that someone of Robert's stature would want to stay in touch with a restaurant server. Robert extended his hand for a handshake. "No, Marcus. Thank you. You reminded me tonight that there are still people in this world who will do the right thing simply because it's right. That's a valuable lesson." As Robert walked toward the exit, Marcus watched him go, still trying to process everything that had happened. The older gentleman paused at the hostess stand to speak briefly with Sarah, then continued out the front door and into the night. Marcus looked down at the business card in his hand, then at the generous tip on the table, and finally toward Mr. Henderson's office, where he knew a difficult conversation awaited him. Whatever happened next, he knew he had made the right choice in standing up for Robert. The question now was whether that choice would cost him his job, and what his future might hold in a world where doing the right thing sometimes came with serious consequences. Marcus knocked on Mr. Henderson's office door with a heavy heart, knowing that the conversation ahead would likely determine his future at the Golden Palm. He had worked hard for 4 years to build a good reputation at the restaurant, and now all of that might be destroyed because he had chosen to stand up for what he believed was right. "Come in," Mr. Henderson called from behind the door. Marcus entered the small office, which was cramped with filing cabinets, schedules, and restaurant supply catalogs. Mr. Henderson sat behind his desk, his face showing a mixture of anger and frustration that Marcus had seen before when dealing with difficult situations. "Sit down." "Marcus," Mr. Henderson said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "We need to discuss what happened out there tonight." Marcus sat down, keeping his hands folded in his lap and maintaining eye contact with his manager. He had decided that whatever consequences he faced, he would accept them with dignity. "I understand, Mr. Henderson. Do you?" Mr. Henderson asked, leaning forward in his chair. "Do you understand that you interfered with a police investigation?" Do you understand that you could have been arrested? Do you understand that your actions tonight could have serious consequences for this restaurant? Marcus took a deep breath before responding. I understand all of that, sir. But I also understand that Mr. Chen was being treated unfairly, and I couldn't stand by and watch that happen. Mr. Henderson shook his head in frustration. Marcus, your job here is to serve customers, not to play hero. When the police are conducting an investigation, you stay out of their way. That's basic common sense. With respect, Mr. Henderson, my job is to serve customers, and that's exactly what I was doing. Mr. Chen was my customer, and he was being treated badly for no good reason. I've been watching him all evening, and he did nothing wrong. Mr. Henderson stood up and began pacing behind his desk. That's not your determination to make, Marcus. The police have training and authority that you don't have. Your job is to trust them to do their job properly. Marcus felt a flash of anger at his manager's words, thinking about all the times he had seen people in his neighborhood treated unfairly by police officers who made assumptions based on appearance or prejudice. But he kept his voice calm and respectful. Mr. Henderson, I've lived in this city my whole life, and I've seen what happens when good people stay silent while others are treated unfairly. Mr. Chen was being polite and cooperative, but he was still being treated like a criminal just because someone made a report. That's not right, regardless of who has the authority. Mr. Henderson stopped pacing and looked directly at Marcus. The bottom line, Marcus, is that you put this restaurant at risk tonight. We could have faced negative publicity. We could have had problems with the police department. And we certainly don't need our servers making scenes in front of customers. Marcus felt his heart sinking as he realized where this conversation was heading. Are you firing me, Mr. Henderson? His manager sat back down and was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with the decision. Marcus knew that his work record at the restaurant had been exemplary. He was always on time. He worked extra shifts when needed, and he had never had any customer complaints. But he also knew that what had happened tonight was unprecedented, and Mr. Henderson was probably concerned about setting a precedent that servers could interfere with police business. Marcus, Mr. Henderson finally said, you're a good employee. You work hard, you're reliable, and the customers like you. But what you did tonight was completely inappropriate. I have to think about the reputation of this restaurant and the safety of our staff and customers. Marcus nodded, preparing himself for the worst. I understand, sir. However, Mr. Henderson continued, Mr. Chen made it very clear that he appreciated your actions. He spoke to me before he left and said that you demonstrated exactly the kind of character and integrity that this restaurant should value in its employees. Marcus looked up in surprise. He hadn't realized that Robert had spoken to his manager before leaving. Mr. Chen also mentioned, Mr. Henderson said with a slight smile, that Chen Industries holds several corporate events throughout the year, and he would be interested in discussing using the Golden Palm for future functions. That kind of business relationship could be very valuable for us. Marcus felt a glimmer of hope but tried not to get too excited. He knew that business considerations could change quickly, and his job security shouldn't depend on one customer's opinion, even if that customer was a wealthy businessman. So here's what's going to happen, Mr. Henderson said, leaning back in his chair. You're going to receive a formal written warning about interfering with police business. That warning will go in your personnel file, and if anything like this ever happens again, you will be terminated immediately. Marcus felt relief wash over him. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I appreciate you giving me another chance. Don't thank me yet, his manager continued. You're also going to attend a seminar on workplace conduct and appropriate responses to law enforcement situations. The restaurant will pay for it, but you'll attend on your own time. That's fair, Marcus replied, genuinely grateful that he still had his job. Mr. Henderson stood up, indicating that the meeting was over. Marcus, I hope you understand that what happened tonight was unusual circumstances. Mr. Chen's intervention is the only reason this conversation is ending with you still employed here. Don't expect that kind of luck again. As Marcus left his manager's office, he felt emotionally drained but relieved. He had kept his job, which meant he could continue supporting his sister's education and working toward his own goals. But more importantly, he felt good about the choice he had made. Standing up for Robert had been the right thing to do, regardless of the consequences. The restaurant had returned to normal operations, with customers finishing their meals and new diners being seated. Marcus returned to his section and began cleaning up Robert's table. pocketing the generous tip and thinking about the business card that was now safely tucked in his wallet. As he worked, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his encounter with Robert Chen was far from over. Something about the way the older gentleman had looked at him, and the way he had emphasized that what happened tonight wouldn't be forgotten, suggested that there might be more to come from their brief but significant meeting. The next morning, Marcus woke up feeling exhausted despite getting a full night's sleep. The events of the previous evening kept replaying in his mind, and he found himself wondering if he had made the right choice. While he felt good about standing up for Robert, he was also aware that he had nearly lost his job and could have been arrested. As he got ready for work, he tried to push these thoughts aside and focus on the day ahead. Marcus arrived at the Golden Palm 30 minutes early, as was his habit. He liked to use the extra time to review his section, check on supplies, and prepare mentally for the shift ahead. The restaurant was quiet in the late morning, with only a few customers enjoying brunch and reading newspapers. As Marcus was setting up his tables and reviewing the day's specials, Sarah, the hostess, approached him with a puzzled expression. "Marcus, there's something strange going on today." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, looking up from the silverware he was polishing. "We've had 3 phone calls this morning asking specifically about you. People wanting to know if you're working today, when your shift starts, that kind of thing. Mr. Henderson told me not to give out any information about employees, but it's weird that people would be calling about a server." Marcus felt a knot forming in his stomach. He wondered if the police incident from the night before had somehow become public knowledge, or if there might be other consequences he hadn't considered. Did any of them leave names or say why they were asking? One person said they were from a local newspaper, and another claimed to be from a business magazine. The third caller didn't give any details at all. Sarah looked concerned. "Do you know what this might be about?" Before Marcus could respond, there was a knock on the office door. Sarah's voice came through clearly, though she sounded nervous. "Mr. Henderson, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see Marcus. He says it's urgent." Mr. Henderson and Marcus exchanged glances. "Who is it, Sarah?" "He says his name is David Kim and he's from Chen Industries. He has identification and business cards. He's asking to speak with Marcus Johnson specifically." Marcus felt his world spinning. First the letter. Now someone from Robert's company was actually here at the restaurant looking for him. This was moving faster than he could have imagined. "Send him back to the office," Mr. Henderson said after a moment's hesitation. "But stay close by in case we need anything." A few moments later, a well-dressed Asian man in his 30s appeared in the doorway. He was wearing an expensive suit and carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to conducting important business. He knocked politely on the doorframe before entering. "Mr. Henderson? Mr. Johnson? I'm David Kim, executive assistant to Mr. Chen. I apologize for arriving unannounced, but Mr. Chen asked me to personally deliver this message to Mr. Johnson." David reached into his briefcase and pulled out an envelope with Marcus's name written on it in elegant handwriting. "Mr. Chen wanted to ensure that this reached you directly and quickly." Marcus accepted the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was another letter, this one handwritten rather than typed, which somehow made it feel even more personal and significant. "Marcus," the letter began, "I spent much of last night thinking about our encounter and your remarkable display of integrity. In my 40 years of business, I have learned that character is the rarest and most valuable quality a person can possess. You demonstrated that quality without hesitation, even when it could have cost you dearly. I would like to offer you an opportunity that could change your life, but only if you're interested in something beyond your current situation. If you would like to hear more, please come to my office today at 2 p.m. Ask for David Kim at the reception desk. He will be expecting you. If you choose not to come, I will understand completely, and this offer will remain confidential. The choice is entirely yours. Sincerely, Robert Chen." Marcus read the letter 3 times before looking up at David Kim, who was waiting patiently for a response. "He wants to see me today? In 2 hours?" "Yes, sir," David replied. Mr. Chen cleared his afternoon schedule specifically for this meeting. However, he wanted me to emphasize that this is completely voluntary. If you're not interested, there will be no hard feelings whatsoever. Mr. Henderson looked back and forth between Marcus and David, clearly trying to understand what was happening. "Marcus, this is your decision, but I have to ask, what kind of opportunity could a CEO possibly have for a restaurant server?" David smiled politely. I'm afraid I'm not privy to the details of what Mr. Chen wants to discuss. I can tell you that he was very impressed by Mr. Johnson's actions last night, and he specifically mentioned that character and integrity are the qualities he values most in the people he works with. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the rapid pace of events. Yesterday, he had been a server worried about keeping his job, and now he was being invited to meet with one of the most powerful businessmen in the city. Part of him wondered if this was all some kind of elaborate test or practical joke. "Can I ask?" Marcus said to David. "Is this really about what happened last night? It seems like such a small thing to make such a big impression." David's expression became more serious. "Mr. Johnson, what you did last night wasn't small at all. You risked your job and potentially your freedom to defend someone you barely knew, simply because you believed it was the right thing to do. In Mr. Chen's experience, that kind of moral courage is extremely rare, especially in today's world where most people are primarily concerned with protecting their own interests." Marcus looked at Mr. Henderson, who nodded encouragingly. "Marcus, I think you should go. Whatever this is about, it's clearly important to Mr. Chen, and it could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." "If I go to this meeting," Marcus asked David, "what should I expect? What kind of opportunity is Mr. Chen talking about?" "I honestly don't know the specifics," David replied, "but I can tell you that Mr. Chen doesn't make offers lightly, and he has a reputation for recognizing potential in people and helping them achieve things they never thought possible. All I can suggest is that you go with an open mind and listen to what he has to say." Marcus looked down at the handwritten letter again, then at his manager, and finally at David Kim. He thought about his sister in college, his online business courses, and his dreams of eventually building a better life for both of them. Whatever Robert Chen wanted to discuss, it couldn't be worse than his current situation, and it might be the opportunity he had been working toward for years. "Okay," Marcus said finally. "I'll be there at 2 p.m. The answer. Mr. Henderson emerged from his office and walked quickly toward them. His expression was unreadable, but there was an urgency in his step that made Marcus nervous. "Marcus, I need to speak with you immediately," Mr. Henderson said. "Sarah, please take over Marcus's section for a few minutes." Marcus followed his manager back to the office, his mind racing through possible explanations for the phone calls and Mr. Henderson's urgent demeanor. Had something changed since their conversation the night before? Had Robert Chen filed a complaint after all? "Sit down, Marcus," Mr. Henderson said, closing the office door behind them. "We have a situation that I honestly don't know how to handle." Marcus sat down, preparing himself for the worst. "What kind of situation, sir?" Mr. Henderson sat behind his desk and pulled out a piece of paper that Marcus recognized as official letterhead from Chen Industries. "I received this fax about an hour ago. It's addressed to me personally, and it's about you." Marcus felt his heart rate increase as Mr. Henderson handed him the letter. The letterhead was impressive, with the Chen Industries logo prominently displayed at the top. The letter was brief but formal, written in the kind of language typically used for important business communications. The letter read, "Dear Mr. Henderson, I am writing to commend one of your employees, Marcus Johnson, for his exceptional character and integrity displayed during an incident at your establishment last evening. Mr. Johnson demonstrated remarkable courage in standing up for what he believed was right, even at personal risk to himself. Such qualities are rare and should be recognized. I would like to request a meeting with Mr. Johnson at his earliest convenience to discuss potential opportunities that might be of mutual interest. Please have him contact my office to arrange this meeting. Sincerely, Robert Chen, Chief Executive Officer, Chen Industries." Marcus read the letter twice, hardly believing what he was seeing. Robert Chen, one of the most powerful businessmen in the city, wanted to meet with him to discuss potential opportunities. It seemed too good to be true. "Marcus," Mr. Henderson said, "I've been managing restaurants for 15 years and I've never seen anything like this. A billionaire CEO writing a personal letter about a server? This is unprecedented." Marcus looked up from the letter, still trying to process what it meant. "Do you think he's serious about this meeting?" The letter came through official channels on company letterhead, with his personal signature. "This isn't a joke, Marcus. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before Marcus Coulee. Marcus stood in front of the gleaming glass tower that housed Chen Industries, feeling completely out of place in his best outfit. A clean white shirt, black pants, and the only tie he owned. The building stretched 40 stories into the sky, with the company logo prominently displayed in golden letters across the front entrance. He had never been inside such an impressive corporate headquarters, and he felt intimidated by the obvious wealth and power it represented. Taking a deep breath, Marcus walked through the revolving glass doors and into a marble-floored lobby that was larger than his entire apartment. Well-dressed business people moved purposefully through the space, their confident demeanor making Marcus acutely aware of his own nervousness. He approached the reception desk where a professional-looking woman greeted him with a polite smile. "Good afternoon. How may I help you?" "I'm Marcus Johnson. I have a 2 p.m. appointment with Mr. Chen. I was told to ask for David Kim." The receptionist checked her computer screen and nodded. "Yes, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Kim is expecting you. Please take a seat and he'll be with you shortly." Marcus sat in one of the expensive leather chairs in the waiting area, trying to calm his nerves and figure out what he was going to say to one of the most successful businessmen in the country. He thought about the events of the previous night and wondered what Robert could possibly want to discuss with him. After just a few minutes, David Kim appeared from the elevator bank, looking exactly as polished and professional as he had at the restaurant. "Mr. Johnson, thank you for coming. Mr. Chen is very much looking forward to speaking with you." They rode the elevator to the 38th floor in comfortable silence, with David occasionally pointing out views of the city through the elevator's glass walls. When the doors opened, Marcus found himself in an elegant reception area with panoramic views of the downtown skyline. "This way, please," David said, leading Marcus down a hallway lined with impressive artwork and photographs showing various Chen Industries projects around the world. At the end of the hallway was a set of double doors made of rich, dark wood. David knocked once and opened the doors to reveal an office that was larger than most people's homes. Floor-to-ceiling windows provided spectacular views of the city, and the space was furnished with obvious care and excellent taste. Behind a massive desk sat Robert Chen, looking exactly as he had the night before, though now he was wearing an impeccably tailored business suit. "Marcus," Robert said, standing up and walking around his desk with a genuine smile. "Thank you so much for coming. Please have a seat." Robert gestured to a comfortable seating area with 2 leather chairs and a coffee table, away from the formal desk setup. This immediately made Marcus feel more at ease, as it suggested a conversation rather than an intimidating business meeting. "Can David get you anything to drink? Coffee, water, soda?" Robert asked as they settled into their chairs. "Water would be great, thank you," Marcus replied, his mouth feeling dry from nervousness. After David brought the water and left them alone, Robert leaned forward in his chair and looked directly at Marcus. "I imagine you're wondering why I asked you here today." "Yes, sir. I have to admit this is all pretty overwhelming. Yesterday I was worried about losing my job, and today I'm sitting in the office of a billionaire CEO. Robert chuckled. "I understand that feeling. Let me start by explaining why what you did last night was so significant to me. Marcus, in my position, I meet hundreds of people every month. Business partners, employees, politicians, community leaders. Most of them are good people, but they're also very aware of my wealth and influence. They treat me a certain way because of what I represent, not because of who I am as a person." Marcus nodded, beginning to understand where this conversation might be heading. "Last night," Robert continued, "you had no idea who I was. You saw what you believed was an injustice and you acted to stop it, even though it could have cost you your job or worse. You didn't stand up for Robert Chen, the billionaire. You stood up for Robert, the person who was being treated unfairly. That kind of character is incredibly rare." "I just did what felt right," Marcus said. "Anyone in that situation would have done the same thing." "No, Marcus, they wouldn't have. Most people would have looked the other way, told themselves it wasn't their business or been too afraid of the consequences. You chose to act on your principles, and that tells me something very important about who you are as a person." Robert stood up and walked to the windows, looking out at the city below. "Marcus, I've built my company by surrounding myself with people of exceptional character and ability. I'm always looking for individuals who have the integrity to do what's right, even when it's difficult or risky." Marcus felt his heart beginning to race as he realized where this conversation was heading. "I'd like to offer you a position with Chen Industries," Robert said, turning back to face Marcus. "It would start as a management training program, where you'd rotate through different departments and learn various aspects of our business operations. The starting salary would be $75,000 per year, with full benefits and opportunities for advancement based on your performance and potential. Marcus nearly choked on his water. The offer was more than 3 times what he was making at the restaurant, and it represented the kind of opportunity he had only dreamed about during his online business courses. Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say. This is incredible, but I have to ask, why me? I don't have a college degree, I don't have any business experience beyond working in a restaurant. Why would you take such a risk on someone like me? Robert sat back down and leaned forward earnestly. Marcus, I've learned that character is more important than credentials. Skills can be taught, knowledge can be acquired, but integrity and moral courage are qualities that people either have or they don't. You've demonstrated both of those qualities in a way that impressed me more than any resume or diploma could. Marcus thought about his sister in college, about the dreams he had been working toward for years, and about the opportunity that was now being presented to him. It seemed too good to be true, but Robert's sincerity was undeniable. There's one condition, Robert added. I want you to finish your education. Chen Industries will pay for you to complete your degree part-time while you're working with us. Education is important, and I believe in investing in the complete development of our people. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes as he realized that this opportunity would not only change his life but would also allow him to better support his sister and achieve goals he had thought might take decades to reach. Mr. Chen, Marcus said, his voice slightly shaky with emotion, I accept your offer, and I promise you that you won't regret taking this chance on me. Robert smiled and extended his hand for a handshake. I know I won't regret it, Marcus. Welcome to Chen Industries. Your courage and character yesterday showed me exactly the kind of person you are, and I'm honored to have you join our team. As they shook hands, Marcus realized that his decision to stand up for what was right had led to the opportunity of a lifetime. Sometimes doing the right thing brings rewards that extend far beyond what anyone could imagine, and Marcus was about to discover just how much his life was going to change because he had chosen integrity over personal safety on one remarkable evening at the Golden Palm.